What's up, everybody? Dman back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla Q and A. You guys have been asking for it for months, and I have to deliver. You guys wanted it. Here it is. Really quick, I apologize it's taken so long from the last Godzilla Q and A to this one. There's been no real reason for it. I've just been doing other videos instead of Q and A's up till this point, but I think now I'll start bringing back the Godzilla Q and A's, as well as, of course, the Kong Q and A's, and eventually Gamera, and maybe some other stuff if you guys want it. I know some people have sent in Walking Dead questions before, so I'll definitely get around to doing those eventually. So, let's get into this Godzilla Q and A. We are going to start out with a question from Godzilla154, who asks, on Twitter, he asked, Dman Gojira, would you like to see the Heisei series continue following Junior, so Godzilla Jr., and his interactions with humanity or other monsters? Now, honestly, although I love the Heisei series, I'm doing it in Godzillathon right now, I'm very enthusiastic about it. Although I love the Heisei series, no. One of the best things about it is the way that it ends so poetically, is that it's just this really dark message, but it's underlined as a happy moment. Godzilla's kid is killed by Destroya, Junior's killed by Destroya. The final scene of the entire series is Junior finally turning into a full Godzilla and basically resurrecting from the dead. Now, it's just so great because the question is asked towards the end of Godzilla vs. Destroya, can humanity live without Godzilla? The answer is no. Humanity, although they really have tried throughout the entire Heisei series, they did not learn their lesson. They still are at fault, and they are still going to commit these kind of crimes against nature with nuclear weapons and everything like that. No, humans did not learn their lesson, and Zilla Jr. is going to be there forever as a reminder of that. And it's just, it's such a good ending to the entire series. I think the Heisei ending, I think Godzilla vs. Destroya is the best Godzilla ending of all time. I definitely think like that is the way to end the series. If they were ever going to end the series again, of course they tried with Final Wars, and of course whenever the Legendary Universe wraps up, I don't think they're ever going to do it as successfully as this movie does. And I really don't ever want to see a continuation of this story with Junior, because that kind of ruins the poetic ending. That kind of ruins the nature of the ending. The ending isn't supposed to be set up for we're gonna show you more sequels with crazy kaiju fights. No, the ending is supposed to sit there as a symbolic representation of human error. It's not supposed to be followed up on as a crazy action series. I hope that makes sense. So short answer, no, I would not like to see the series continue with Junior. Next question is from Ultraman Nexus, who asks, hey D-Man, what is your favorite Heisei Godzilla movie? So my favorite Heisei Godzilla movie is probably Godzilla vs. Destroya. Honestly, it's kind of a tough question because I like a lot of the Heisei series. Godzilla vs. Biollante is, as I just did my Godzillathon for, it just blew me away when I watched it. It's an incredible movie, very, very overlooked, but overall, I think Destroya is a more solid film, and I think that's kind of one of the best, probably one of the top 2 or 3 entries in the entire series, honestly. I think it is just kind of the prime Godzilla movie. It is so good. So here's a pretty interesting question given recent events. It comes from Luthadie. Sorry, not good with names. He asks, mate, I got a question for you. What do you think of the Ultraman franchise, considering Ultraman Orb movie is in a few months away? So, Ultraman, I'm not super familiar with. I'm not as familiar with it as I'd like to be. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool concept. I've seen some episodes here and there, but I've never really watched a lot of the series. I think I watched one of the newer Ultraman movies from a few years ago. But I'm not very familiar with Ultraman, so I say it's an interesting question considering there is a new Ultraman TV series that is coming out pretty soon, or maybe it's Ultraman Orb. I'm not sure. Of course, that'll be in a news update for Godzilla coming up soon. It's not, Godzilla's not in it, but it's Godzilla related considering its origins connected to Super Rhea. But I'll definitely have the news sorted out then. All I do know is that something Ultraman related is coming to American television real soon, so I feel like I can give my thoughts on this here now. Ultraman, not totally into it, but I think it's a cool idea, and what I've seen of it I like, so I don't know, I think it's a pretty solid Kaiju TV series, if not that there's a very big scale for me to base that on, but I think it's a pretty good one. Alright, so this question comes from Trackiller. He asks, or she asks, what do you think will happen to Shin Godzilla? So this is a big question. So, what do you think will happen to Shin Godzilla? Will they try to dispose of the body? I'm going to start out by answering just question by question. Will they try to dispose of the body? No, they're not going to be able to move that body. I don't think they're going to be able to get his big frozen butt out of Tokyo. I think it's just going to be stuck there, and they're not going to be able to touch it. It's just going to have to be like one of those things where they're like, okay, well, we'll try and do something to contain this if it ever wakes up again, but because they know the half-life is only like 200 and something days or something like that, so he will thaw out eventually, but I don't know, I think they're not going to try and get rid of the body necessarily. They're going to try and figure out what to do to prevent him either A, waking up, or B, destroying things if he does wake up. And then he says, will they keep it, study it, and learn more? I think that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to study him and try and figure out what the hell they can do to stop him. He says, let's not forget that the countdown for the nuke is still on pause. That is true. The nuke is seconds away, like hundreds of seconds away from being launched at Japan. Now, I don't know if they're going to have some sort of like Godzilla 1984 situation where if America does launch the nuke, Japan's going to contact like the Russians and be like, hey, shoot this thing down, or some sort of way to get the missile fired out of the sky. Assuming, and this is, by the way, all assuming that there will be a Shin Godzilla 2. I don't think they're going to be able to. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the nuke from firing, but I do think they're going to be able to stop it from reaching Tokyo, and I think that's going to be the way it kind of plays out. It's very similar to 84. So he says, if they find out what's happening with the tail, they'll probably try to destroy him. That is true. If they do find out that he's in the process of another mutation, even after the coagulant's taken effect, they're going to have to come up with some sort of other plan of how do we kill Godzilla before the half-life wears off, because otherwise he's going to turn into something more powerful. Then he says, maybe he wakes up, goes to sea, and the nuke strikes him in the water, further mutating him. Now that shouldn't happen, because the nuke will be targeted at Tokyo, not Godzilla specifically, and Godzilla is not going to be able to get from the heart of Tokyo to the ocean before that nuke reaches Japan, so there's no situation where Godzilla's in the water when the nuke hits him, and I don't think that would further mutate him. That'd probably hurt him, and maybe give him a little bit more energy after that, but I think the mutations are all self-contained at this point. I think it's all part of his reactor on the inside instead of what he takes in on the outside. Otherwise, you'd have to think, like, how is he getting the energy to mutate on land? Like, he shouldn't get the energy to mutate on land. He just already can because it's just part of his DNA by this point. Next question comes from David Brown, who asks, hey Dman 1954, what Kaiju tag team battle would you like to see in a future Godzilla movie? And then he says Q and A, thanks. So, future Godzilla tag team movie battles, what would I like to see? Number one, I want to see Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan tag team against King Ghidorah in Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. Number two, in a future movie, not Godzilla vs. Kong, but a movie that takes place after that, maybe the what everyone's calling the hopeful Destroy All Monsters kind of thing, if Legendary continues this Monsterverse past Godzilla King of the Monsters and past Godzilla vs. Kong, what people like to refer to as, hopefully this is like the hope of all hopes, is that we'll get a Destroy All Monsters eventually. I'd like to see Kong and Godzilla be forced to team up against a bunch of other kaiju who are going to come down on them. After that, what else would I like to see? I'd like to see Kong take on both Gargantuas, of course Kong being like the legendary Kong, who's hundreds of feet tall. Of course he's only 100 feet tall in Kong Skull Island, but by the time Kong vs. Godzilla rolls around in 2020, he'll be bigger, much bigger hopefully, but We don't know, so I'd like to see a big, huge Kong take on some, like, medium-sized gargantuas. When I say medium-sized, they can be their Showa height, because in the Showa series, they're only roughly 100 feet, like, around that area. So I'd like to see Kong take on both of them, because they're much like Kong. They can do all this crazy stuff that Godzilla can't do. They're a lot more flexible, a lot more agile. They're intelligent. Not that Godzilla's not intelligent, but they have different types of intelligence. They're a lot quicker, so I'd like to see Kong, someone who basically matches them on every level, take them on, and vice versa. They match him on every level, so I'd really like to see that fight. I think that'd be really interesting. And of course, I'd like to see Godzilla and Anguirus team up again. I think that'd be a great tag team fight if Godzilla and Anguirus, doesn't matter what universe, probably preferably the Legendary Universe, Godzilla and Anguirus team up against someone else. I think that'd be pretty cool. Eric Wilson asks, one more question. Who is your favorite Godzilla foe? So my favorite Godzilla enemy is Gabra. No sarcasm intended.
There's lots of sarcasm intended with that answer.
So my honest favorite Godzilla foe, other than outside of Kong and King Ghidorah, the two obvious answers. I don't know. Mothra's all right. I like Rodan whenever Godzilla and Rodan would fight. But really, I think like ultimately, if you're gonna rule out Kong and Ghidorah, it's gonna come down to be like Mechagodzilla. If that's still too obvious of an answer, I'm kind of out of luck at that point because I can't really think of like any monster that I always hope to see Godzilla fight again. It's those ones that come to mind. So yeah, that's my short answer. He also asks, what's your favorite Godzilla suit? He says, what's your least favorite Godzilla suit? I've answered the favorite question a couple times. So my least favorite Godzilla suit is the one seen in Godzilla, what's it called? Ebra Horror of the Deep. That suit is just absolutely terrible. Godzilla looks completely ridiculous. I hate everything about that movie. And Godzilla just looks so awful in that movie. I just cannot, I hate it. Carmon Jones says, and I don't know if I've answered any of these questions before, but if I have, you know, it's alright. I'm probably giving slightly different answers just because a lot of time has passed since the last Q&A, and I've been formulating more and more opinions as time goes on, because I know I've had a question similar to this before, and I don't know if it was a repeat question that I just accidentally wrote down twice, but this one from Carmon Jones says, Q&A, do you think, due to the success of Shin Godzilla as well as possible success of Godzilla 2, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong, do you think we will get an overseas release of another Godzilla game, and do you think it would be more in lines of the Godzilla Unleashed or Godzilla PS4 game? So, do I think we're going to get another Godzilla game? I know previously I have not thought we would, but now I definitely do. I think we are going to get another Godzilla game after the success of Kong Skull Island. I'm going to blow through this question because I definitely have answered something similar to it before. So I think we're going to definitely get a new Godzilla game in these next few years. Probably after Godzilla vs. Kong comes out in 2020, we'll get a new game. By then it'll be many, many years since the 2015 game. It'll be 5 years later, and so they're going to make a new game. They'll take in the consideration of all the criticism they got, and they'll try and make it better, and who knows what it'll be. It'll probably be more along the lines of I'd assume Godzilla Unleashed, because that game was more successful than the Godzilla PS4 game in terms of popularity and you know, just general overall opinions of it. However, I do prefer the Godzilla PS4 game, and I would like to see more games in line with that one in the future, just with new features. Like I've mentioned in the past, I'd like to see a challenge wall implemented into the game, just like Mortal Kombat. I would also like to see things like better online features, and then more unlockable kaiju, more unlockable abilities. So basically just make a Mortal Kombat game with Godzilla characters, and you're basically good to go. Next question, again from David Brown, says, Q&A, hey Dman 1954, would you keep Pacific Rim in its own universe or have it take place in the Godzilla universe? Thanks. So this question's a little bit tricky because I would not want Pacific Rim to take place in the Godzilla universe. However, the fact that we have interdimensional breaches open up inside of the Pacific Rim universe, it's totally a possibility, and I'm totally fine with this, as I've talked about in my top 15 things that need to happen in Pacific Rim 2 video. Totally fine if an interdimensional breach opens up and then outswims Godzilla from some unknown universe. Like, obviously, not the Godzilla from the Legendary Monsterverse, or, you know, not any, like, Shin Godzilla. I don't want to see anything like that, but I would like to see a Godzilla and they're like, oh, that comes from some universe out there. A Godzilla swim up through the interdimensional breach, and they're like, whoa, that's not one of the kaiju we've seen from this universe that we're used to. Like, this is a totally different creature here. And then Godzilla will come up and they'll be like, well, the other ones are grown, like, very specifically, and then this thing comes along and it's just nothing we've seen before. It doesn't look like anything we've seen before. It doesn't act like anything we've seen before. It's more animalistic, more brutal, and it is just this crazy monster. I'd like to see a very villainous Godzilla show up and just wreck, and I think that'd be incredible. Just such a cool movie. And then, of course, because you can't kill Godzilla, I think it'd be a great way to end the movie by at least turning him back, sending him back into the breach, and getting rid of him again, because they can't kill him, like I said. They just would have to get rid of him out of their universe, because otherwise he's just gonna cause too much damage. Or they could open up that first breach to the previous Kaiju world and kind of send Godzilla in there, and then we could see Godzilla just tackle a whole bunch of these other Kaiju in this, like, mutation universe where they're all being grown and everything like that, and Godzilla will swim through that breach and wind up fighting all them. That'd be pretty cool too. I would prefer if they just would send Godzilla to his own universe, because then, you know, I don't know, you could make a spin-off series on that. I don't necessarily think you can make a whole spin-off series of just Godzilla fighting these Kaiju in the Pacific Rim alternate universe, you know? Next question from Dicer Vixen asks, Q&A, how would you handle a Shin Godzilla and Legendary Godzilla crossover? So this question I've avoided for, like, months. Like, I have not wanted to talk about this just because it's very controversial. How would I handle, basically, Shin Godzilla vs. Godzilla 2014. Not talking about movies. I think it's obvious by this point on the channel my standpoint on Shin Godzilla the movie. I think it's better than Godzilla 2014. I think the music, the soundtrack's better. The story, I think, is better. It's much more real world and grounded in a very interesting place. I really like how deep it is. It's not just an on the surface, we're gonna have to get Ford Brody to his wife and kids. His wife and kid. This one's more of a, like, very deep analytical look and a political commentary on the current status of Japan. I think Godzilla in the movie, he does more and he is cooler in Shin Godzilla. Although, don't get me wrong here, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, screw you, man, I love Godzilla 2014. Go for it. You know, if you want to like 2014 better, I don't care. That is not my business. You know, you don't need to tell me that I'm wrong. You don't need to tell me, yeah, I get it, okay? I get it. Lots of people like 2014 better. I'm not trying to knock on that movie. I really like that movie a lot, but I just think Shin Godzilla overall is a more solid movie than Godzilla 2014 is. That's just my personal opinion. If you disagree with it, you know, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong unless you just have absolute garbage reasoning like, well, I don't like it because the soundtrack reuses Ifukube music, which is lazy. And then you're going to, in the same video called Why Godzilla 2014 is Better Than Shin Godzilla, whatever it was called, and you're going to also talk about Godzilla 2014 is really good because it reused a piece of soundtrack from a different movie. You're just at that point contradicting yourself and just not being intelligent. At that point, I'm going to tell you you're wrong, because at that point your logic is flawed, and there's nothing about that. It's like, yeah, you can still like the movie better, it's just your reasoning is flawed, and that's all I'm going to say, is that, you know, you can like Godzilla 2014 better, but your reasoning on why it doesn't make sense at all. And you know, if you know the video that I'm talking about, it's a very popular video, it doesn't make sense, alright? His reasoning is awful. Godzilla 2014, you know, Godzilla is bad. It's dumb. Like, the guy doesn't understand what Shin Godzilla is. He doesn't look at it more in depth the way it's supposed to be viewed. He just views it as a normal monster movie, a popcorn B movie, and I think that's why a lot of Americans like 2014 more, is because they don't understand Shin Godzilla at all. Anyways, getting off that side rant, going into the characters, how would I handle Godzilla vs. Shin Godzilla, the two monsters fighting? Of course, I would skip the first two forms, or the first three forms. No Kamata-kun, no Shinagawa-kun, no Tail in the Water. Skip that, just have Godzilla in his fourth form, his fourth evolution, show up and fight Godzilla 2014. I would want Godzilla 2014 to dominate the fight. You know, Shin Godzilla's not in fighting position, okay? He's not very combat ready, okay? You look at his arms, you look at his legs, you look at the way he moves, he's not ready to fight. Godzilla 2014, I want to cream Shin Godzilla, leave him in this hibernation state, and then Godzilla 2014 would be like, oh, that was a hard fight, I guess, because he has those really powerful purple lasers that tore straight through my body, but I'm gonna go sleep this one off in the ocean, and then we'll see what happens from there. And I want, during that time that that after whatever the first battle between the two would be, I would want Godzilla to go into the ocean, 2014, to go into the ocean, and then I would want Shin Godzilla to be on land. He'd be down for the count, and then he'd start to evolve again. I'd want him to mutate into a much bigger, much more menacing, much stronger Godzilla, make him real beefy and real muscly, make him real strong. You can keep the tail lasers. You can keep that if you need to. I'm fine if he has those back projectiles, and I'm totally cool with the atomic breath. But if you have to, keep the tail laser. But I want him to grow into his tail, sort of. You know how his tail's like twice the size of his body. Maybe he grows and the tail doesn't, so it's more proportional to him. Or maybe, you know, the tail could grow with him. I don't care. I'm just saying, like, just to try and give a little bit of a height estimation on how much I want him to get bigger. I think something like that would work pretty well, and then of course he could just club Godzilla with his massive tail, Club 2014. The rematch fight, I'd want it to come down, basically I'd want them to either A, kill each other, or B, be both so badly damaged that again they have to go their separate ways, or I'd want Godzilla 2014 to lose, Shin Godzilla to leave, and then 2014 to not be dead, but kind of like drag himself off to sea, so that it'd be a reverse of the first fight, because Shin Godzilla develops so that he basically adapts so that the first thing that kills him can't kill him again. He's basically the doomsday of the Godzilla universe, as we see in the movie. He gets bombed in the back. Now all of a sudden he develops an ability so that he can no longer be bombed in the back. He runs out of nuclear energy. Now all of a sudden he transfers everything else into his tail, and all of a sudden he has a new reactor in his tail. He's hit with this coagulant that's going to stop his blood, so he forces a reactor shutdown on himself so that his blood can't overheat or overcool. He forces a reactor shutdown so that he can basically become immortal for the time being, which is exactly what happens at the end of Shin Godzilla. They don't freeze him, like I've been saying. I really think, after thinking about it a lot more, I really think what we're supposed to assume is that Godzilla forces a reactor shutdown kind of thing, puts himself into this frozen state, which is exactly what the Japanese government wanted him to do, but I think what they didn't estimate was now he's going to adapt so that they can no longer do that to him. He's no longer going to be able to get knocked down and everything like that. He is going to become this mass force that they just cannot stop. And I think something like that with Godzilla 2014 would be great. If he's like, oh, I'm big, but I'm not big enough, I guess I'll just beef myself up even more. Maybe get some muscle on those arms, and then he can really beat up Godzilla 2014. That'd be a very cool fight. Even if you like Godzilla 2014 more, you have to admit that'd be an incredible fight to see on screen. That'd be so damn cool. So there you go. That's my answer to that really short question that I really went ham with. So final three questions here. The one of the last ones comes from Larry Rodinguzzi. Jesus, I'm sorry guys. I've never pretended to be good at names. He says, Q&A, if you could do a Godzilla crossover film with a non-kaiju character, who would it be? Ben 10. I'd have Godzilla crossover with Ben 10. I'd have Ben 10 be able to turn into all these different aliens. Maybe he goes to Azimuth, and if you guys are like, who's Ben 10? Don't talk to me. I don't want you on this channel. So, I love Ben 10. So I'd want Ben to, like, you know, of course Godzilla would show up, and he'd be like, well, damn, what am I going to do? Turn into, like, Humongousaur and get himself beat. And then he'd be like, oh, I guess I'm going to go way big to try and match this guy's size. I'm thinking, like, Godzilla would be Showa height, so, like, 150 feet here. So then he turns into, like, way big, which is roughly 100 feet, and then they can duke it out. So it's basically Ultraman vs. Godzilla, because if you didn't know, way big is inspired by Ultraman. I'd like to see the two of them fight for a while, and then after they fight for a while, I would like to see, basically, Ben to go to, like, Azimuth or someone and be like, hey, hook me up with an Omnitrix upgrade so that my Omnitrix can now turn me into any alien I want, is way big size, and then they can fight again, and maybe they'll, you know, I don't know, Ben would probably lose that fight still, even with his way big sized aliens, but, you know, maybe because it's Ben 10, Ben would win, and Godzilla would be like, alright, I'm going away, just like it always happens in Ben 10. I don't know, I think that'd be cool. I really like Ben 10, so I'd want to see them cross over. Otherwise, it'd be like the Pacific Rim characters, which is okay, but he says non-kaiju characters, so I can't do Pacific Rim or Ultraman. This question is from an unknown person. I forgot to write down your name. I'm really sorry about that. This one says, Godzilla, legendary, of course. He says, the legendary Godzilla, would you like to see red atomic breath, red spiral breath, or different forms of the atomic breath? Yes, I would like to see Godzilla develop the red spiral breath in the legendary series. Now, final question again comes from David Brown. Sorry I'm picking him so much. I just really like his questions. I think he does a good job at asking them. Also, if you want your question answered, sorry if it wasn't answered in this video, guys. Just make sure you leave a question down below. Don't leave a repeat question that you've already asked before, because if I didn't answer it before, I probably won't answer it again. But maybe because I do have like a list of 20 other questions that I haven't gotten to yet. So, you know, you may be coming up, which is also another reason why please don't ask your questions multiple times on multiple videos, because it's going to confuse me. I'm going to write them both down. I'm going to wind up answering them more than once. Maybe it happened in this video. I don't know. So, make sure you leave Q and A in front of your question. Put Q and A, write your question, and then there you go. Maybe I'll answer it if I think it's good enough, and if I don't think it's good enough, I'm really sorry about that. So the final question from David Brown asks, so Dman1954, I have a question. Do you think Biollante is a heroine or a villain? He just asked this on my most recent Godzilla Q and A. He says, if so, why? Rewatching Godzilla vs. Biollante, no, she's not a heroine at all. She's not a hero. She has no heroic qualities other than she beats Godzilla. Sort of. She doesn't even beat him. The military puts that anti-nuclear bacteria in him, and then he basically just loses the fight as a result of that. So, Biollante is not a hero. She is a villain, honestly. We see her terrorizing people when she's in her plant form, when she's in the laboratory. She terrorizes the people that break into the lab. She kills 2 of the 3 of them. She turns in that giant rose and again terrorizes people, like hissing at them with her tentacles. Then she turns into her final form and she blows up a whole bunch of stuff with her tentacles, because she's not a good guy. She's just a monster. So there you go. That's my answer to the question. Once again, guys, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. D-Man out.